Hello, this is Eileen, the environmental educator, and in this video we're going to talk about a new report that just came out a couple of days ago. About half of the U.S. water is too polluted for swimming, fishing, or drinking, report finds. March 30th, 2022. I mean, if you search it, it was covered a lot of places, and as far as I can tell, it's pretty much the same article. Here it is in Strange Sounds. It's in the Hill. It's more than 700,000 miles of waterways, accounting for about 51% of assessed rivers and stream miles remain impaired with pollution. That's in addition to another 55% of lake acres and 26% of estuary miles. So by Shirin Ali, Shirin, March 28th, 2020, this really truly, like, if you scroll down this article, it is the same. And many of these publications that I looked at, it says the Clean Water Act was passed 50 years ago. And how did that come into play? Oh, I remember. Yeah, remember this, the Cuyahoga River caught fire at least a dozen times, but no one cared until 1969. And yeah, it's so polluted that it caught fire, and it made headlines, and it started what became the this is a better article here. It started what became the Environmental Protection Agency, well, the Clean Water Act. It the Cuyahoga's water helped create the industries it would pollute, right? Because all industries use water, they're all lined up on the side of a waterway, and then its flow went right into the Lake Erie. Yeah, it's so all of the, what was a clean river started getting pollution from all of the businesses that were on its side, and then it flowed right into Lake Erie. And this is all sources of drinking water, and rivers used to be um, recreation sites, and right, people swim in them, they fish in them, and so it's a source of food too. And it just the Cuyahoga first caught on fire in 1986, and it would burn 11 more times until the blaze on June 22nd, 1969. It wasn't a big one, and it was extinguished in 24 minutes, and this was before social media and whatnot. So they say there's not pictures of it, but here's the first black mayor, Carl Stokes, and he, was elected on, one of his signature issues was water pollution, and at the time he convinced voters to pass $100 million taxpayer initiative to begin improving the quality of the city's waterways. And back in 1969, 100 million was a lot more than it is today. And so that was always kind of deemed a success. The river did start cleaning up, getting better, getting less polluted, I guess you can say. But then it just caught on fire again recently. It Here's a picture on August 25th, and yeah, there's the river on fire, and it says the protections for the Cuyahoga, I don't know if I say that right, are not perfect. A major remaining source of pollution are storm drains, which allow sewage, toxins, and fertilizers to flow into the river during heavy rains. It was through one of those that a fuel tanker spilled its flaming contents into the river in a road accident on August 25th, 2020. So, This happens. Our waterways are everything we throw down our drains, and we all know what gets thrown down our drains. Anything that's liquid, pills, toxic, just everything. And that's the water that then becomes our rivers and our streams and our drinking water and our recreation and our fishing areas. You're bringing food home from polluted waters. And so right now, this report, it says that a new report by the Environmental Integrity Project, which came off of the EPA, it's in a different article, has found that 50 years since the passage of the Clean Water Act, the country's waterways are severely polluted. They are too polluted for swimming, fishing, and drinking. And researchers argued the EPA needs to update water assessment regulations and allocate more funding for staff and resources. No, that's a band-aid. That's putting a band-aid on a gushing wound. And what we need to do is actually stop creating the pollution by living responsibly, by gaining individual cooperation and stopping all of our irresponsible actions, by ending our disposable society, by ending all of the products that we use that are just nothing but toxins and chemicals. And this is the end result of it, our waterways. So it says that, well, Indiana tops on the list of states with the dirtiest waterways. Second is Oregon, and that's somewhat surprising because Oregon, they love their outdoors out there, and they're pretty in touch with the environment. They're a hip crowd. They're a woke mob out there, and yet their waterways are the second worst in the country. Um, Florida ranks first in the U.S. for total acres of lakes classified as impaired for swimming and aquatic life, and second for total lake acres listed as impaired for any use. So that's interesting. California also ranks when it comes to the most river and stream miles listed as impaired for drinking water and third for fish consumption. So, on top of that, that's on top of limited funding and budget cuts, causing state environmental agencies to be understaffed and unable to test their waters within the mandated time periods. You know what? Back before we were a disposable society, back before we started living irresponsibly and just, creating products that are just loaded with chemicals and toxins, back when our water was clean, we didn't have to worry about testing it. So we shouldn't be, worried about spending money testing it. We should just actually live responsibly so that our waters don't have to be tested. Yeah, I don't know. That's just crazy talk, but you know what? Keep it simple. And that's the bottom line of it. We didn't have environmental problems when we weren't a disposable society. So, yeah, and how easy is that to go back to? Very easy. It can happen virtually overnight. But do you hear anybody talking about it? No, oh my God, what we have to do is test. No, what we have to do is stop being the problem. Okay? It's not hard to figure out. It's just hard for everybody that's paid to figure it out. And those of us with solutions sit here on the sidelines, being, mocked at by these organizations that won't allow solutions and then are baffled as to how things go, go down. It says that the Clean Air Act has not achieved what it promised. Well, you know what? It's up against a lot of irresponsible action by a couple 100,000 people, a couple 100 million people in this country, So there's only so much that testing can do. It can just tell you how bad things are. It can't keep you from living responsibly to get good test results. But I mean, they could encourage you, right? But will they? Not since November 1993. So it says agricultural runoff is another area that needs to be addressed. It believes that it is by far one of the largest sources of impairments in waterways across the U.S. And it all is, and that includes, what people use on their yards and in their gardens. And it's just there are solutions, but people want the simple one. They think that just throwing money and an agency at it is going to fix it, while they keep putting in, every morsel you eat will add weight to you. Every unenvironmental action you do is the 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 end result of the problem. When you add everybody else's unenvironmental actions in, all of them total are these problems. And so it's really easy to take them out. But one, the environmental voices that need to start encouraging people. Well, one, they need to be leadership by example. Two, they need to gain individual cooperation. And yet nobody ever talks about that. Nobody. We'll just throw money at it. Well, no, money's not doing anything. It says the current White House occupations infrastructure bill does include funding for water pollution control efforts, with the EPA announcing this month it intended to work with state, local, and tribal partners to implement $43 billion in water infrastructure funding. We don't need $43 billion. What we need is the White House to actually finally get on the solutions they've been preventing since Barack's first White House occupation. So, that's the state of the U.S. water today, people. So it's very easy to live responsibly. It's very easy to take your contribution to this problem out. And when that's done by all, it's problem resolved. It's not 43 billion. It's not testing. It's not a government agency that's going to solve this. It's people living responsibly. So stay tuned, people. And remember this, when I love going swimming in rivers in the summer, and it's really sad that could be a thing that, there's signs everywhere. Don't go in the water. So we have to just live responsibly, people, and it's really easy to do. So get educated, get on board, just become responsible, and get it to be hip and get everybody else on board too. Stay tuned, people.